The grand finale of the strongest tournament in Epoch kicked off with an explosion right in the middle of the arena. Then the excited announcer talks about Linji's terrifying strength and flawless mechanics. He questions if this kind of power can be reached through practice, adding that his strength is god tier. The warrior is named Linji, the war emperor of the berserker class and the #1 player in the game. His execution has no blind spots, and every strike targets vital points like a relentless force from the underworld. With that, the guard of Bailey Changqing, the level 85 Saint Swordsman, is broken. Linji gains a massive advantage, and it looks like his opponent has no strength left to fight. Bailey's health drops to critical, and the announcer already declares that the champion is about to be crowned. The protagonist stands tall before his fallen opponent, ready to deliver the final strike. Taking off his helmet, he smiles and says it looks like he is the winner this time around. The blonde-haired opponent then admits that he truly lost the battle. But suddenly, the swordsman flashes a wicked smile and says he cannot lose. With a look full of anger, he shouts that it is impossible for him to be defeated in this place. The blonde guy then says that if he unleashes his power, all of Linji's hard work will mean absolutely nothing. Then a power is activated, and the durability of the opponent's weapon becomes infinite. Because of this, the broken sword fixes itself right in front of Linji, leaving him completely shocked. Right after that, a new power is activated, costing 500,000 yen, granting him super speed. Our protagonist's eyes widen as he realizes his opponent is using a cheat code. The blonde swordsman charges at a ridiculous speed straight toward our character. Linji tries to defend himself, but his opponent's speed is so intense that he gets knocked back. Bailey gives a mocking look and calls him a fool for thinking hard work can change his destiny. The protagonist is startled by the speed and can barely keep up with his opponent's movements. Shortly after, he activates teleportation and an instant elimination strike, spending a ton of money. Then, with a single hit, the warrior is defeated, and the system warns that his account will be deleted. After that, the young man falls to his knees and asks why his friend betrayed him like that. He shouts, "Want to know why the swordsman used cheats to win and broke their promise?" With a sad look, the blonde guy simply apologizes to our protagonist for everything that happened. He then says they can be brothers in their next life and delivers the final blow to the young man. With that, the system starts to reboot, and Linji shouts that he refuses to accept this defeat. The young man then remembers that since he was born, he was stuck at the bottom of society. But he believed that if he fought hard and was relentless, he could change his destiny. Because of this, he fought tooth and nail to climb the ranks in the game. He was only one step away from reaching the absolute top and finally claiming his throne. For that reason, he risked his own well-being to get to where he was at that moment. In the end, all his effort was for nothing because he ended up losing absolutely everything. As he fades away, he swears that if he could live again, he would reach the top using any means necessary. Suddenly, the protagonist wakes up shouting in his room and sees a screen saying his access has been revoked. He is panting and startled, completely confused about what was happening right then. Confused, he wonders where he is and notices a red-haired girl standing at his bedroom door. The young woman walks over and asks if he is lying on the floor pretending to be knocked out. With wide eyes, the protagonist wonders if that girl is really his sister. He then remembers that she went into a coma 3 years ago after a car accident. That was why he spent all the money he made in the game to cover her medical bills. The red-haired girl stands at the door, not understanding why her brother looks so shocked. At that moment, he grabs her by the shoulders and shouts that she should be in a hospital bed. She pins him down, yelling that he fried his brain from playing too much, and accuses him of faking amnesia. Lying on the floor, the young man, still confused, asks what the exact date and year is. His sister says it is the launch day of Epoch, and he realizes he has traveled exactly 5 years back in time. Then it hits him that this is not a dream and that he truly went back to the past. The young man remembers when he was betrayed by Bailey and felt nothing but absolute despair. But he realizes destiny shifted in his favor, giving him a chance to start over. With a sharp pain in his head, the young man understands that his life in the game can be rewritten. With a determined look, he swears that this time he will undoubtedly reach the very top of Epoch. He has enough money saved up to buy the VR helmet and start everything over again. Over time, the game Epoch became a beautiful and unknown world that attracted many players. In that world, he was known as the immortal god of war and leveled up with his pure technique. Players praised him as a master of skill, and he gained immense popularity. The protagonist was just one step away from achieving the title of the strongest in the game. However, his best friend Bailey betrayed him and became the enemy who stopped him from winning the title. The young man then decides that there is no point in thinking about it and that it is better to focus on the chance to start over. Putting on the helmet, he swears he will not let the same regrets happen again. Then a bright light shines and the system welcomes him to the game Epoch Online. He then enters the game and needs to decide what his class will be to start the adventure. The young man remembers that in his past life, the developers never released guides or information. But for him, who is a 5-year veteran from the future, this game has almost no secrets. With this, clearing the content and exploring everything will be very easy, and that is his biggest advantage. Thus, he spawns in the starting village square, where many other players are also beginning. Right away, some players already start making fun of anyone who chooses the warrior class these days. They say he does not have a decent weapon and call him a poor guy with no future. Even after traveling back in time, he still stands firm in his choice to be a warrior. In a memory from 2 years ago, he was facing an army of monsters all by himself. Even against all odds, he stood his ground like a true warrior on the battlefield. Without a doubt, even if he could start over, he would still pick the same class as always. Bailey then says that warrior is a class only the lowest level players would pick. They cannot afford expensive gear and do not have flashy spells to use in battle. With that, his blonde friend claims that warriors were born just to be cannon fodder. He then suggests that to have the best playstyle, Linji should choose the swordsman class, but the protagonist firmly believes in the path of warrior strength and resilience. He says that it is only by fighting to survive every crisis that one earns the right to become strong. Thus, he became the immortal god of war, the undisputed top tier of that time in the game. Bailey says that only a player who survived countless battles can hold the title of God of War. With a confident smile, the protagonist then proposes a little bet between the two of them. The swordsman gets curious and asks what this bet between them would be about. Linji leaps into the attack and shouts that even after returning, he is still the immortal god of war. Back in the present, he thinks about the warrior's advantages, like massive health and advanced progression. He then chooses the same class he used in his past life to start his journey in the game. The Berserker is a class that converts its massive health pool into overwhelming offensive power. The young man thinks that players who spend money only care about the flashiest classes. Classes like Mage, Swordsman, Hunter, and Stealth Fighter have a massive player base because of this. Because of that, 9 out of 10 groups he sees on the streets are just variations of these damage classes. But he doubts these players can hold their ground against the super strong early monsters. Warriors, on the other hand, have a survival advantage, and he can make up for any flaws with his mastery. At that moment, a system notification appears with the first mission he needs to complete in town. The goal is to report to the rookie instructor Alterlet, an older gentleman sitting on a bench. Seeing the instructor, he smiles and says he did not expect to see this old man again, bringing back memories. Suddenly, a player in armor bumps into him and tells him to watch out, calling him a garbage warrior. The level 2 paladin named Belay says that to pass through there, he will have to pay 1 copper coin. The protagonist is surprised because the server launched half an hour ago, and there is already a level 2 player. He then remembers that this is a strategy for those who spend money buying the rookie pack. With that, they use the level gap to intimidate weaker players and charge protection fees. The protagonist then smirks and thinks that they are nothing but paper tigers. He knows the mission reward is 10 copper coins, so even if he pays, he would still make a profit. But with a serious look, he asks why on earth he should give his money to that guy. The paladin then attacks him and shouts that he is stronger, telling the young man to delete his character. However, Linji blocks the opponent's sword attack using just his bare hand. The aggressor is in shock to see that he cannot move his weapon even a single inch. This happens because of his starting talent, Enhanced Grip, which increases his finger strength. The bully recognizes this talent and calls it useless, saying not even a dog would choose it. The young man smiles and says that for the paladin it might be useless, but for him, it is a different story. Then a yellow aura surrounds him as he shows that it is a supreme talent and breaks the weapon. The armored player falls to the ground, crying in despair after being disarmed with bare hands. The young man explains that this seemingly useless talent allows him to parry enemy attacks. Furthermore, its effectiveness increases with strength and can even disarm weaker opponents. This just proves that the level 2 paladin has less strength than him and is nothing but a fool in the game. What the other guy does not know is that this talent evolves into one of the strongest in the skill tree. It becomes Titan's Grip, which allows the use of a 2-handed sword with just one hand. Suddenly, the city guards arrive, causing all the players to start scattering. The bully then threatens Lin Ji and accuses him of assault to the approaching guards. The level 5 guards surround the protagonist, who admits to the accusation with a smile. The paladin gets all excited and yells for the guards to arrest the guy since he confessed himself. But our protagonist tells the guard that it was purely an act of self-defense. The guard then gets furious and yells, asking what he means by self-defense. At that moment, the paladin panics and yells that he is a VIP who spent 100,000 on the game. Lin Ji knows that whoever starts the conflict is the aggressor, and the other party faces no penalty. With that, the guards completely ignore the paladin and attack him for having confessed to the crime. Suddenly, a system notification announces that the aggressor must pay 1 copper coin to Lin Ji. He then remembers that the victim is not only unpunished but can also end up being rewarded. The protagonist takes the coin with a smile and says the aggressor's apologies are accepted. With the mess sorted out, he is surrounded by the paladin's friends and asks if they want to give him more copper. Then, with an intimidating look, he asks if they are going to hand over more money or get out of the way. The bully's friends are paralyzed with fear and very angry at our hero's attitude. Left with no choice, the group of players makes way for the protagonist, who calmly goes on his way. Following that, his mission objective updates, and he needs to go talk to the instructor Ultilet. Upon finding the old man sitting on the bench, the young man greets him and says it has been a while. The old guy is confused and asks how he knows him if the server just opened 1 day ago. The young man sits down and says they are old friends and haven't seen each other in at least 5 years. Ultilet then says he is qualified to claim his reward and shows 3 options to choose from. Other players comment that the best choice is the money since it is worth a lot on the black market, but our hero surprises everyone, and with a confident smile he says he chooses option 4. The instructor is shocked and wonders where on earth a 4th option appeared from out of nowhere. The protagonist then says a code phrase to get a secret reward from the instructor. Shocked, the old man asks where he heard those words because that was impossible. Linji continues reciting the poem about the Black Moon and the rebirth of a new era in the game. He then asks if Ultilet still remembers the code phrase he gave him in the past. In a flashback to 5 years ago, he completed a mission to protect the NPC's family. Back then, the instructor thanked him but regretted not having any good reward to offer. But he said that if the young man ever needed help, all he had to do was recite a secret phrase. That way, even if the system made him forget, he would remember that Linji was his savior. Back in the present, the old man realizes he is important and the mission conditions are met. Then the 4th secret reward option appears on the screen for our protagonist to choose. The young man thinks that in his past life, he was 1 step away from the top but lost through unfair means. But even if unfairness is the norm in this world, he refuses to accept that destiny. Upon accepting the prize, he receives a starting talent stone that grants a unique ability. The other players are shocked, because that was a gem that could not be bought with money. The protagonist knows that to be the strongest in this life, he needs to be the best from the very start. For his 2nd talent, he chooses the Sword's Oath, the first step to changing his future. The NPC explains that this talent locks him into using only a sword for the rest of his life in the game. With a confident smile, the young man says he is absolutely sure of his difficult talent choice. As he walks away, the other players call him a rookie for picking such a bad mastery. But the instructor says that the strongest weapon is not the sword, but rather the person wielding it. The protagonist thanks someone named Adelaide for the gift while thinking about his next steps. He remembers that in his past life he only got the talent at level 30, but now he has it right from the start. With this, he knows that the advantage of those who spend money in the game quickly runs out after level 5. On the other hand, for someone who levels up based on pure skill, a simple iron sword is already enough. The sword doesn't have the stats of an axe, the power of a spear, let alone the flashiness of a staff. But what others do not realize is that the sword is the weapon that truly demands a lot of skill. His original plan was to get the iron sword from the instructor and head out to hunt monsters. But by choosing the secret talent, he did not take the weapon and now finds himself empty-handed. The young man then realizes that everything has completely changed because of his new reward choice. He wonders if making different choices will also change the ending of his story with Bailey. With a determined look, he swears he will get stronger to change the end of his past life. Next, he approaches a group of players who are selling gear to the rookies. The protagonist walks up and tells the seller he wants to see the garbage he is selling. With disdain, he spits on the ground and says those weapons are nothing but a pile of useless scrap. Right after, he picks up a low-quality wooden club with only 1 attack point. The young man thinks the weapon is a hammer, but for some reason, it also falls under the sword category. Suddenly, the protagonist's eyes widen as he realizes something very important about the weapon. The seller then begs the young man to please leave him alone because he is just selling items. At that moment, a bully mocks the seller, calling him a coward for not knowing how to fight in the game. But Linji defends him and says that without their weapons and potions, no one would be able to leave the city. Our hero then asks the price of the club, and the seller says it costs 1 copper coin. The bully turns to him and asks who the heck he is to meddle in his business. Hearing that he is a warrior, the aggressor starts laughing while Linji buys the club. The hooded player gets angry and accuses him of ruining his mood while he was doing a good deed. With a serious look, the protagonist then questions if bullying others is considered a good deed. The bully calls him a clueless rookie and says he got scammed because the club is garbage. He then claims the merchant is a scammer, and meanwhile the seller tries to run away. With disgust, the aggressor says Linji deserves to be scammed and leaves the area with his friend. The protagonist thinks that clubs are usually free and rookies fall for the scam for 1 coin. He then remembers that this was a classic scam early in the game to trick newcomers, but he knows that the club with sword and hammer attributes is a very special weapon. Because of that, he holds the wooden club with a serious look, analyzing the weapon in his hands. The young man concludes that it is a divine artifact, and even without being able to appraise it, he can use it as a sword. With this, he equips the club, and his stats appear on the screen alongside the title of the returner. Suddenly, a dark red aura surrounds the entire city, and a world event begins in the game. A mission is triggered for all players to defend the gates and the city's crystal. He knows the city is in a strategic spot, and that the monsters from the north are quite strong. Moreover, he remembers that 1 year later, the city vanished from the map because of this attack. The other players get excited about the experience points and run to the north gate to fight. But the guards stop him and tell him to go to other gates because it is too dangerous there. The protagonist faces the guard and says he does not need protection, asking to be let through. The guard warns him that he will lose his beginner protection, but the young man says he seeks worthy opponents. Walking toward the gate, he states he does not care if the enemies are of a higher level. Then he shouts to open the gate, and his reputation in the city increases by 100 for his bravery. With this, he knows that impressing NPCs with bravery can end up unlocking secret missions. The guard then calls him a brave adventurer and asks a favor, triggering a new quest. Linji thinks that, as expected, a level 3 mission was activated for him, who is only level 1. The captain says that 3 of his men were captured by a boss and asks him to recover their bodies. The young man knows that accepting high-level challenges gives extra rewards and can change the city's future. He then says they do not need a funeral, but rather defeat the boss to close the dungeon. For this, a very low-level player needs to defeat the boss, so he must keep his level low. With his knowledge, he is capable of taking on a god-tier boss even though he is only level 1. The captain is shocked and asks how our hero knows his name without ever having seen him before. Linji promises to rescue the men and save the city, telling the captain to prepare the celebration. But the guard says that is impossible and that without a miracle, his men are already doomed. The protagonist then thinks that with his own hands, he will tip the scales of destiny in his favor. Leaving the city, he comes across a cemetery at the village entrance and a river of red. With a smile on his face, he says that the smell in that place are absolutely perfect. The game is known for being very difficult, but the rewards attract players from all over the world. At that moment, he approaches a group of adventurers near a campfire looking for members. He knows the ideal strategy for regular players is to form a group to survive. Suddenly, a player recognizes him and calls him a fool for getting scammed earlier in town. They then make fun of the young man for still holding that wooden club he bought. Our hero just glares at them with disdain and says they are boring and not funny at all. Then another player approaches and asks if he plans to face the monsters all alone. The group keeps mocking him and says he will come back begging for help when he gets defeated. He knows that going solo means the loot is 5 times bigger, so a group would be a huge loss for him. Then the knight tries to attack him, but Linji hits him with a single punch, sending him flying. The aggressor falls to the ground completely confused, not understanding what just happened. The protagonist notices that the knight was fragile and had chosen the Punishing Flames talent. The knight says he slipped, but the cost of the talent makes him strong in exchange for being as fragile as paper. With a smile, he thinks that this knight is just a coward hiding behind his group. The knight then runs with his friend toward a monster to lure it to our hero. With that, the system warns that he caught the attention of a powerful creature in the forest. The monster then charges at him and the coward says he is about to get a one-way ticket back to town. The young man realizes the plan is to purposely lure the monster to him and that this guy has some brains. He thinks that taking down this monster won't make him level up, but it can serve as a warm-up. The group of players then mocks him, saying he is paralyzed with fear of the monster. But with focused eyes, the protagonist says he can see exactly what he needs to do to win. He can perfectly predict the entire trajectory of the strike the monster is about to unleash. With an agile move, he dodges the monster's strike without any apparent difficulty. He then thinks that a true warrior only gets stronger when he gets close to his absolute limit. Furthermore, only by putting himself in danger can he become a true god of war. To him, this is the only way to become the strongest player of all in this new life. Shouting at himself to pull it together, he lands a critical hit straight to the creature's head. The system announces that the monster became furious and its attack power increased by 50%. The cowardly knight then shouts that he is a fool because charging in now is a terrible idea. But the protagonist knows the attack intensity still isn't enough, and he needs to get closer. With a determined smile, he runs toward the beast so he can execute his plan. Then he readies his wooden club to interrupt the creature's attack at the exact right moment. The strike hits the monster's throat, stopping its attack and leaving it completely stunned. Wasting no time, the young man pushes forward to continue his combo of attacks against the creature. He gives the monster no time to recover and lands another blow with his club. Finally, with one last strike, our hero uses all his strength to finish off the beast. The monster falls defeated, and he thinks that pushing past his limits is the right way to play the game. The players are shocked and wonder how a level 1 rookie can have so much skill. The knight then gets up and says that all of that was just pure luck, because there is no other explanation. At that moment, a new player approaches and says he must be a beta tester with that technique. With a smile, he invites him to join his group because they are in need of a specialist. But Lin Ji simply ignores the invite and says he is not interested in that at all. The group leader asks if the young man is going to challenge the boss and says his team needs a 5th member. With a smile, he invites him and a system notification appears for our hero to accept. Moreover, he offers to split all the dungeon items 50% for each person. Linji then corrects him and says that 5 players is just a recommendation, not a strict rule. The player is shocked and says that personal skill alone is not enough to win solo. He then adds that the first time completion reward is unique, and his team has the best shot at getting it. Another player explains that the boss summons minions, and they need a tank to absorb the hits. The protagonist then states that they do not need a meat shield, but a true warrior. The group leader tries to reassure him, saying that it is nothing like what he is thinking right now. He then claims they genuinely think he is highly skilled for their elite squad, but the young man knows they just want bait to draw the boss's attention into a trap. The player then looks at him with a serious expression and asks what his final decision will be. To everyone's surprise, our hero accepts the invitation and joins the player group. He figures that the dungeon's difficulty increases along with the rewards when there are more people on the team. With 5 players, the boss enters full combat mode and drops exclusive items when defeated. The protagonist knows that once cleared, the boss is removed, making its items much rarer. Because of this, he knows this reward is the most crucial part for leveling up early on. With a determined look, he swears he will use this unique chance to grab all the prizes. Arriving at the entrance, they come across a massive, glowing blue energy portal. The other players criticize him for not knowing that potions are hard to get at the beginning. One player complains that for every 100 monsters, you only get 2 copper coins and no gear. He also mentions that almost no one gets green items on day 1, while the protagonist stares at the portal. Suddenly, the system announces that the Wooden Club is looking for a new host to merge with. The knight tells him to stop because players cannot use monster weapons and that item is useless. He then explains that if it were easy, the game's economy would crash in just a single day. But our hero touches the weapon to the item and wonders if the club wants to merge with the gear. With that, the system states that the branch of the world tree is fusing with the monster's sword. He then acquires the chipped demon sword, which has a damage over time effect and boosts his stats. The young man recalls seeing this item in an auction 3 years ago, and that it changes form depending on the owner. The most incredible part is that the artifact can transform and adapt, turning into a sword or an axe. Furthermore, he remembers that at the auction, the item was sold for 100 million yuan in the past. With a smirk, he thinks that players and monsters are not even on the same power level early on. Using the branch, he can steal weapons from monsters and swap between them at no cost. He then enters the dungeon and witnesses a massive battle taking place inside the village. The soldiers shout to protect the city as they bravely fight the dungeon boss. The group leader warns him not to go because it is a cutscene and he can only fight after it ends. He explains that in seconds the boss will crush the 3 of them and enter a resting phase before attacking. At this, our hero says he has absolutely no interest in watching that scene play out to the end. He then yells at the boss to give up and turn back because the guard captain is waiting for him. With this unexpected attitude, the other players are completely shocked and confused by the scene. The guards who are about to be sacrificed are shocked and yell yes, accepting his help. The protagonist says his tactic is to skip the cutscene and attack the boss immediately without hesitation. With that, the player in the hat gets furious and calls him a fool for charging the boss alone. The group leader then yells for everyone to stay back and let the rookie fall to the boss. The boss then attacks our hero, since he was the first one to step onto the battlefield there. But with a smile, he thinks he is not being stubborn, and actually has a good reason for this. He knows the timeline has changed and the mission's direction can also be altered by this. The young man then charges at the boss so he can finally change his destiny and his future. The group leader reveals they tricked the rookie into testing the monster's attack patterns. The other player complains that the rewards will be split with him according to the rules. With a wicked smile, the group leader says they are not going to give our hero that chance. Suddenly, a system notification announces the protagonist has been kicked from their group. Even so, the young man keeps fighting and manages to dodge the giant monster's powerful attack. He then thinks that, just as expected, they trick rookies to lower the dungeon's difficulty. They believe the boss is way too strong and impossible for a level 1 rookie to defeat. But what they don't know is that he is no rookie, and their calculation is completely wrong. With a dark aura, he shouts that he is a warrior reborn from the abyss. To everyone's surprise, the dungeon boss is then shocked and entirely speechless, facing our protagonist's power. At that, a shockwave hits the other players, knocking them far back with massive force. The group leader then wonders what that sound was, feeling like it was tearing through the air. Yelling for the boss to face him, our hero pushes forward with his weapon ready for combat. With glowing eyes, he stares down the monster with unwavering determination and zero fear. He then activates his ability, and the system notes that his attack increases when he uses a sword. The boss takes the hit, and the other players are shocked because they are fighting on equal footing. Suddenly, the monster is surrounded by a purple aura, and the system announces the second phase has begun. With this, the boss starts charging a dark energy attack much stronger than the previous one. The protagonist prepares for the worst because he needs to put himself in danger to get stronger. The other players call him a fool for trying to block the attack and brace themselves to fight. Upon impact, a massive explosion of purple energy occurs, wiping out everything around them. Our hero then manages to stand his ground amidst all the chaos of the boss battle. He thinks it is unbelievable to them that he would pick a warrior class with no future. But the truth is, not everyone is born with the right to make their own choices. In a flashback, a seller says classes are priced and the rich can be the strongest. Those without money can only pick support classes or ones meant to be used as bait. The young man remembers that the warrior class was free for a while, and he made a discovery. For him, the best way to seize an opportunity is actually to give up on all the others. The group leader shouts that it is impossible for him to block the hit since he is only level 1. The protagonist thinks that taking the most dangerous training route is the only way to become the absolute best. The system then activates a skill that allows him to hold his sword as if it were a shield. With this, he swears he will grab this chance and trust himself to change his destiny. The system announces that the boss exposed a weakness, and the young man manages to block the monster's strike. He figures that by giving up everything, all that is left in front of him are opportunities. With a determined look, he swears that even the top tiers will fall and he will become the strongest. With a smile on his face, he shouts for the boss to be eliminated as he readies his final attack. Wasting no time, he charges full force toward the boss to end the battle once and for all. Wrapped in a golden aura, our hero uses all his might to deliver the decisive blow. The system then announces that he successfully defeated the dungeon boss all by himself. With the monster taken down, the protagonist stands still, panting heavily after the intense fight. He thinks that withstanding an attack like that was rough, but luckily warriors have more health. Hanging on by a thread of health, he gets the experience bonus and levels up to level 2 in the game. His stats are then updated on the screen, showing his new level and new attributes. The other players are stunned and wonder if what they just saw is actually real. The group leader says the boss was defeated even before the second phase had finished. Several notifications pop up, and the boss is permanently removed from the game forever. The monster's body then begins to glow, and various items are scattered across the floor of the area. The player group gets angry and says that was an unfair victory and probably some kind of glitch. The leader then tells his friends to grab the items, because they can still claim the majority of it. But one player tries to pick up a coin, and the system warns he has no right to the item. The player gets furious and starts yelling, wondering why on earth he cannot pick up the loot. The leader then realizes that by kicking Linji from the group, he lost the right to the items. The player yells in anger because the items have absolutely nothing to do with them now. The system shows the item Griffin's Golden Bell, which blocks heavy damage and knocks enemies back. The protagonist looks at the bell and thinks the exclusive boss drop is surprisingly small. With a smile, he reaches out to claim his well-deserved prize from the battle against the monster. At that moment, all the coins and items fly rapidly toward our hero. One of the players is shocked to see a gold coin passing right in front of his face. Linji grabs the bag of coins while the others complain that the loot was obviously theirs. The leader then tells his friend to calm down because it doesn't matter if the guy took all the spoils. With a smirk, he explains that players drop all the items they collected in the last 24 hours. The other player notes that he defeated the boss alone and his strength must be terrifying. A player in a hat tells them not to be afraid and uses his skill to check the young man's health. He then notices the protagonist is at only 3% health and a single scratch would finish him. The leader orders everyone to activate battle mode and declares Lin Ji will not leave the dungeon standing. Meanwhile, our hero turns around and starts walking away, completely unaware of the imminent danger. He then figures he earned 100 copper coins and a massive amount of alchemy materials. Looking at the auction house, he calculates that 1 copper coin is worth 12,000 yuan, and he's going to make a fortune. Suddenly, the leader appears, sarcastically congratulating him for proving he has some skills. The young man stares at him and says it is too late to apologize, since he betrayed him and kicked him out. But the leader claims they didn't interfere because they believed in his strength to beat the boss alone. With a greedy look, he then insists they should get a share of the credit for that. Suddenly, the system announces that the protagonist suffered a critical hit, and he coughs slightly. Before returning to a safe zone, his max HP drops by 90% and his stats plummet. The leader then says they work with the infamous Rex villain gang, and he is finished. With a smirk, he reveals that his rule is to eliminate monsters and players, cooperating and betraying. He then glares at Lin Ji, and one of his men preps an attack, weapon glowing brightly. With that, the whole group steps forward, and the leader yells for our hero to hand over everything he has. But the protagonist dodges the attack and realizes it is the hunter skill Eagle Eye. He then realizes the skill vastly improves accuracy and that the archer missed the arrow on purpose. The young man turns to the group and calmly asks what exactly they mean by all this. The leader explains he wants not only the boss loot but also his clothes and his wooden club. With a wicked smile, he says if the guy hands everything over and begs for mercy, they will not eliminate him. But what he really wants is to completely humiliate the protagonist so everyone can see his defeat. His friends then start laughing, calling him just a poor warrior who got lucky. With a smile on his face, our hero then says that since things are this way, he has an answer. Raising his weapon, he faces the group and says he obviously refuses to do what they ask. He then states they are nothing more than a stepping stone on his path to becoming stronger. Moreover, he says he will steamroll right over them without a second thought and won't care what happens. With a determined look, he challenges the leader and says that is exactly what he wants to happen. The group readies for an attack, and the leader says that since he refuses, there's no other choice. He then yells for his men to take him down, and the hunter activates his skill once again. But the protagonist uses the golden bell, which glows intensely to protect him from the strike. The hunter's attack collides with the bell's golden barrier, creating a small explosion. Upon impact, a massive golden energy goes off, blowing smoke everywhere. Amidst the smoke, the leader shouts that it is the inherited artifact from the boss, the golden bell. One of the players then asks what the bell does and if it grants the user invincibility. From inside the barrier, our hero says it isn't invincibility, it only buys him a single second. The leader then yells that 1 second is useless because meeting his end now or later is the same thing. But the young man reveals that 1 second is the exact time he needs to upgrade a skill. Using his skill point, he learns the exclusive warrior skill called Death's Sigh. The ability restores a massive amount of HP when near the very end and can even break the maximum health limit. The hunter is shocked to see the young man's health bar completely full once again. With a dark smile, he asks if the gentlemen want to taste a bit of power from the underworld. The mage yells not to be afraid and to focus their attacks since his sword is still stuck in the ground. But before they can react, our hero charges at them with incredible speed. The leader is completely shocked and speechless at the young man's impressive speed. Without giving him time to process, the protagonist lands a solid punch right in the hunter's face. The impact of the blow is so strong it creates a small shockwave and sends the others flying. The other players are stunned and yell that he is way too fast for them to track. Knocked to the ground, the hunter was taken out with just 1 punch and bare-handed. To everyone's surprise, the system then reveals his new skill, which enhances his unarmed combat when fighting without a weapon. The leader then shouts for the mage to use Ice Explosion to freeze our hero in place. With that, the mage casts the spell, and the system announces the protagonist is frozen and cannot move. The other player charges with his sword, and yells that he was already sick of looking at his face. But the system states he passed the strength check and easily breaks free from the ice holding him. With his fist glowing, he preps to deliver a powerful punch to the enemy standing before him. The hit lands flawlessly, and the player is thrown far back with absurd force as he cries out in pain. The mage is shocked because his ice explosion couldn't hold him for even a single second. The protagonist then explains that if his strength is high enough, he can break free using brute force. The mage is confused and says his stats should be cut in half because of his injuries. He then notices the young man seems to have no penalty and asks the archer to check his stats. But our hero appears right next to him and says there is absolutely no need to do that right now. With a smile, he reminds him that he sent the hunter back to the spawn point with just 1 punch. The mage is terrified by the situation and realizes that something is definitely not right here. Desperate, he accuses him of using a cheat program and claims he must be hacking. With a surprised look, the protagonist stares at the mage after being called a darn hacker. At that, he remembers a flashback where someone accused him of cheating in another life. The person in the flashback says there is no point in talking anymore since he had already lost the battle. The young man then remembers saying he would never stoop to such a low level of power. Back in the present, he grabs the mage and yells that garbage like him only cry when they get outplayed. The mage then begs for his safety and says he surrenders, promising to leave the villain gang. But our hero says it is too late, and using his enhanced grip skill, he holds him tight. With a single throw, he slams the mage hard against a wall, taking him out instantly. The protagonist then turns around and faces the final player left from the enemy group. The leader glares at him and says he threw away his only advantage by defeating his teammates. With a smirk, he claims he knows exactly how his class traits helped him win. He then explains that warriors unleash explosive power when cornered or surrounded. The system then displays the warrior trait that massively boosts stats when surrounded by enemies. The leader says that since he is the only one left, the ability won't trigger anymore, and his tricks are over. Linji then agrees and says he will defeat him fairly with a single powerful strike. But the leader reveals he is a stealth fighter specializing in one-on-one combat, so the advantage is his. With that, the two charge and clash, creating a massive shockwave from the impact of the fight. The protagonist manages to block the rogue's attack with his large two-handed sword. At that moment, the stealth class description reveals that its trait is cumulative vital strikes. A hit to the head causes blindness, the arms disarm, the torso bleeds, and the legs cripple the target. Once hit, the player is quickly crippled by multiple debuffs stacking up on their body. The leader says he has good footwork to keep up with his speed using a weapon like that, but he grazes him with a scratch and says close combat is his specialty, so he's already done for. With an evil laugh, he says the young man will soon be on his knees begging for an end to his misery. Our hero then stares him down with a serious look, and his sword starts to glow intensely. With a powerful swing, he knocks him back and says he will just create some space between them. The leader thinks that even with his stats cut in half, the young man's destructive power is still intense. With a smirk, he says that if the fight drags on, our hero's defeat will be absolute. But the protagonist shouts, asking who said anything about a battle of attrition. With his sword glowing, he charges forward with everything and tells the leader he can regret it at the crystal. The stealth fighter is shocked, eyes wide as he witnesses the sheer power of our hero's attack. Suddenly, he spawns at the revival crystal completely stripped of all his gear. The system then announces he was eliminated by the warrior Lin Ji and respawned at the location. Moreover, he receives a death penalty and his level drops from 3 down to 2 in the game. His friends find him and remind him that players drop all items from the last 24 hours. The leader is humiliated and furious when he realizes all his gear was lost in the battle. Full of rage, he yells that it isn't over yet and he will get his revenge on our hero someday. Back in the dungeon, the protagonist looks at the leader's clothes and is surprised by what he sees. The final surviving player gives thanks for putting all his points into defense to survive. At that moment, he turns around and finds our hero staring at him with a very serious look. Terrified, he yells for the guy not to come closer and threatens him with his large sword. But Lin Ji simply tosses the leader's clothes to him and asks him to do a little favor. He then turns away and asks the player to pass a message along to their gang leader. Radiating a dark aura, he says that if he runs into their gang again, he is going to do something. He swears he will wipe them all out until their levels drop to 0 and nothing is left. The player is absolutely terrified by the threat and stammers out that he got the message. The surviving player is completely shaken and tries to hold back his nausea caused by sheer panic. With that, he covers his mouth with his hands, feeling the crushing pressure our hero left behind. On his knees with his sword on the ground, the warrior keeps feeling sick as Lin Ji walks away. He then wonders what kind of overwhelming power that was, carrying an immeasurable aura. To him, the protagonist was like a god of war returning straight from the abyss to terrify him. Meanwhile, the system notes that by resisting the malicious attack, he gained 300 reputation points. Approaching the gates of Male City, the guards salute him in unison and welcome him back. The young man is very confused by the warm reception and wonders what on earth is going on there. Suddenly, all the guards kneel and address him as Lord Dawnblade, offering him honors. Other players watch the scene in shock, wondering why the NPCs are bowing down to someone. One guesses it is an expensive VIP perk, but another doubts a poor warrior would spend money. Lin Ji then remembers the Dawnblade title and recalls hearing about it in his past life. In a flashback to 3 years ago, the world was plunged into a long and dangerous era of eternal night. During that dark time, monsters roamed wild everywhere, and civilization was on the brink of collapse. It was then that a legendary human warrior emerged with a sword capable of summoning the dawn's light. Leading an army of all races, he fought the final battle and managed to bring light back to the world. The nameless warrior raised his sword, and the title was granted to the brave who fight against evil. Back in the present, our hero recalls that this is one of the game's 8 legendary inherited titles. He knows these titles are prerequisites for the most powerful inheritances and that he never saw anyone get one. With a smile, he thinks it is amazing to have obtained one of the 8 legendary titles in a simple beginner village. The city guards continue to salute him while our hero marvels at his unbelievable luck. A guard explains that the entire city weeps tears of gratitude for his noble deeds and courage. He then reveals that Mayor Oliver Green wants to throw a banquet, unlocking a side quest. The guard offers to personally escort him to the town hall to meet the city's leader. But Lin Ji turns down the offer, preferring to keep a low profile, so he doesn't draw attention from other players. Hiding in the shadows, a player calls him a show-off and prepares to strike with his sharp dagger. With a hateful look, he swears he will wait for the guy to step into an alley to show him what a stab feels like. His friend warns him that the city NPCs treat him with reverence, and that they still need to live there. But the leader says infamy is still fame, and taking him down will make other players respect them. One of the thugs then asks if the boss already has a plan to make our hero suffer for this. The leader says he is the infamous Rex, and in Male, he holds more influence than anyone else. A guard approaches and warns that brandishing weapons in public is strictly forbidden during the current celebration. Rex tries to play it off and complains that the NPCs are too strict, making it impossible to enjoy the game. But the guard warns him they are keeping an eye on malicious players, and that he better behave in town. Rex walks away annoyed, whispering that Male has dark alleys too and Lin Ji is going to regret it. Meanwhile, our hero arrives at the town hall, which serves as the office for the mayor of Male City. Wasting no time, he opens the door and walks inside to meet the leader of that city. As soon as he enters, a voice calls him Lord Dawnblade from inside the dark, mysterious room. The mayor then steps out and greets him with a wide smile, saying he has finally arrived. He shakes the young man's hand and thanks him, saying the nightmare of the Chanter Griffin has finally been eradicated. The mayor praises his actions, stating he saved the city and that this is a historical milestone. The young man remembers that in his past life, the mayor was a stern NPC who never cracked a smile. But now he looks much better, and our hero replies that he only did the absolute minimum he could for the city. To celebrate his bravery and the city's gratitude, the mayor then makes a solemn proposal. He suggests erecting a heroic golden statue in the square so everyone will know of his legend. That way, all visitors could be inspired by the radiant spirit of the Dawnblade. But the protagonist declines, saying a statue won't change the lives of the players in the village. With a smile, he then asks if instead, he can make a different proposition to the leader. The mayor asks what his suggestion is and offers anything he deems worthy of his deeds. Our hero suggests that the military funds meant to fight the Griffin be invested in something practical. He proposes a tax reduction for adventurers at the trading posts to help out the rookies. Secondly, he suggests beefing up security so a threat like that never happens again. The mayor is impressed because he has never met anyone so dedicated to the well-being of all players. Deeply moved, he says the young man's vision puts him to shame, and that he will issue the order right away. An announcement informs all players about a permanent 50% tax reduction. The players are shocked and thrilled by the news, celebrating that they can now afford potions. With tears in his eyes, the mayor says the young man brought the true light of dawn to the city. As a sign of personal gratitude, he then offers one more gift to our hero right there. The gift is the key to a 2-story house with a beautiful view of the city's mills and fields. The system congratulates him on being the first player in the game to acquire an independent property. The system displays the residence and states his legendary status has been etched into the city's history. Owning land in the game was a nearly unattainable privilege since the world is controlled by a master AI. Unlike other games, the wealthiest players couldn't simply buy everything up and monopolize trade. In the vast game world, every inch of land was already owned, whether by the massive system cities, or the lands belonged to the various native tribes scattered all across the map, or even unmatched monsters that ruled their lairs packed with treasure and endless riches. The most a regular player could manage was renting a stall or a workshop for a limited time. Even guilds could only secure a tiny territory and risked losing it at any moment in battle. Having a private space was a massive advantage for storing items and researching future upgrades. With key in hand, he thanks the mayor and says he truly appreciates the gift he received. The mayor replies that the young man's presence in the city is far more inspiring than any golden statue. At that, the system reveals perks like teleportation, item repair, and remote access to the auction house. Plus, he gets a 15% discount on his expenses, and the system wishes that the dawn protects him. With that, our hero bids the mayor farewell and walks back out to the city's bustling streets. He then figures that since he has a discount, it is the perfect time to hit the market and restock supplies. Suddenly, a hooded figure uses the pickpocket skill and the system announces a success. The young man realizes he just lost 100 copper coins and is surprised by what just happened. The thief celebrates the successful steal, gripping the coin pouch he just snatched from the guy, but the protagonist yells for him to give the money back and lands a direct punch to the thief's face. The blow is so hard it sends him flying, launching the coin pouch high up into the air. Our hero gets annoyed and says the city's security could use a little help dealing with thieves. Suddenly, a mysterious woman appears, shouting for the thief to stop exactly where he is. She then lands in a dark alley, and the young man follows her so he can get his money back. He corners her and tells her to stop running because that alley is a dead end. But the woman reveals she is an elite thief and says that line should have been hers, not his. At that moment, several other thieves appear and completely surround our hero in the dark alley. He then remembers the city has a dark side and recognizes the boss of Shadow Street, Shilian. The thief is surprised and asks if he is a beta player to know so much about the game. But the young man remembers being robbed by them in his past life and knows that routine well. She then reveals that someone paid them a lot of money to finish off the young man right there. He figures he has only angered 2 people, the paladin Belai and the stealth fighter Rex from the villain gang. With that, he wonders which of the 2 hired them to take him down. The woman says he should know exactly who hired her and asks if she needs to explain. Our hero understands and says the coward lacks the guts to face him, so he hired goons. She then explains she is just an NPC and that personal beasts between players are none of her business. Flashing a wicked look, she gives the order and yells for her men to take him out without hesitation. At that, all the thieves charge the protagonist with weapons drawn, ready to strike, but the young man defends himself with his large sword, easily blocking an enemy attack. The force of the blow creates a massive shockwave, knocking the enemies away with its power. Standing alone amidst the defeated enemies, he readies his glowing sword for the next strike. The thief praises him, calling him pretty strong, and addresses him as little brother with a smile. Our hero then asks if she wants to take a beating too and continues to glare at her seriously. But she calls off the fight, realizing that robbing someone like him is terrible business and not worth it. She orders her men to fall back because they are no match for Lord Dawnblade. The woman explains that even NPCs have to weigh the costs and benefits of a brawl like that. With that, she decides to tell Rex that the target was too thorny and cancels the contract. The thief says goodbye and invites him for a drink on Shadow Street someday, using her name to get in. But just as she is about to leave, the protagonist stops her with a very direct and blunt command. Surprised, she turns around and asks why he isn't happy since she is leaving him alone. The young man holds out his hand and demands back the pouch of copper coins she stole earlier. Xiaolian gets irritated and says she was playing nice, yet he still dares to bargain with her. With a dark look, she claims the money is the fee for her sparing the fool's life. Our hero's eye begins to glow, and he says he earned that money through his own skills. With his aura erupting, he challenges her, saying she better have the talent to take what's his. The woman accepts the challenge and declares that the bounty on his head and every coin are now hers. At that moment, the two charge at each other with weapons drawn to begin their battle. The blades clash in a violent impact, creating a burst of light and massive energy in the alley. The force of the strike is so intense it knocks them both back, showcasing the power of both fighters. With a wicked smile, the woman says his weapon was shattered by her special attack. The protagonist realizes something is off because the Xiaolian from his past life was just a standard NPC. The woman offers him some cash to buy a new weapon from the blacksmith since he is so handsome. The young man wonders why she is acting so different and much more theatrical than in his past life. But he is unfazed and preps to fight, even if he has to use only his bare hands in battle. With a determined look, he warns that he still will not show his opponent any mercy. The thief mocks his attempt to provoke her and calls that attitude way too glitchy for him. But since she is in a good mood today, she will entertain him a bit with some close combat. With a wicked smile, she calls her men over to show in the Shadow Street welcoming ceremony. At that, all her henchmen start cheering and rooting for their boss's victory right there. They keep yelling for her to finish the guy off and show him who runs that alley. From above, we see our hero surrounded while the crowd continues to back the thief in the fight. Xiaolian charges forward with a purple aura in her hand, ready to strike the young man without hesitation. She taunts him, calling him too slow as she closes in at high speed for the hit. The protagonist is caught off guard by her quickness and fails to react in time to the attack. She lands a powerful kick on him and asks what he thought of that move. The impact of the blow is so strong it knocks him back, letting our hero feel the thief's strength. Shocked by her power, he realizes this woman is genuinely much stronger than she seemed. But the young man manages to recover just in time, blocking her next overhead strike with his arms. He then acknowledges she is incredibly strong as she lands back on the ground with agility. Wasting no time, the protagonist pushes toward her to unleash his counterattack. He lands a solid punch and asks what she thinks of his new move, but the woman dodges and says he narrowly missed, complimenting the young man's reflexes. Then she attempts a new strike and asks what he thinks of the new attack she prepped. However, our hero manages to block her punch with his own hand at the very last second. The thief is shocked because she did not expect him to be strong enough to stop her hit. With that, the protagonist tightly grips her fist, completely neutralizing her attack. He then shoves her far away with a massive push and declares it is time to end this fight. The force of the shove cracks the ground, and the young man's aura explodes with intense power. Xiaolian finds it all fascinating and realizes she won't be able to defeat him without drawing her blade. The young man questions if it is worth continuing and warns that her losses will only be greater. With a surprised look, the woman seems to weigh his words and contemplates what to do. Suddenly, she bursts out laughing and calls him a very interesting person for daring to challenge her. With that, she yields the fight and says she is no longer in the mood to continue the brawl. The thief tosses the coin pouch back and says fighting over this would just interfere with her business. Then she calls her men to leave and bids the protagonist farewell, saying see you later. Our hero catches his money back and thinks that woman is definitely very strange. But he notices the pouch feels heavier than before and wonders if it is just his imagination. When he opens the bag to check, he finds a shiny, strange object resting inside. He sees it looks like an eye and a system message pops up for him. The young man wonders what kind of welcome gift and partnership she just sent him. Ultimately, the object keeps glowing brightly in his hand, leaving him quite confused. Suddenly, the eye lights up with an intense blue glow and sinks straight into the young man's body. At that, he feels an agonizing pain and drops to his knees as the item fuses with him. The system then informs him that he acquired the Eye of True Vision to see through illusions. The protagonist thinks about the partnership and is amazed he scored such a rare item. With a smirk, he figures that the city of mail in this life is going to be far more interesting. He then goes back to walking through the bustling market streets of the city looking for items. Our hero wonders if he can spot any hidden gems around there to buy. Suddenly, a vendor yells out, offering a pile of black stones for just 1 copper coin. The young man turns and stares at the vendor's stall with a very serious and curious expression. He knows black stone is the most basic and abundant mineral in the game and is practically worthless. But while he is thinking that, the system announces that the Eye of True Vision has activated. Surprised, he notices his eye is glowing and wonders why it activated all on its own. Using the new ability, he sees that one of the stones in the pile is different from the rest. Glowing purple, the stone stands out among the others, indicating it is a special item. The system analyzes the item and reveals that our hero discovered a starlight stone. With a smile, he is impressed by the eye's power since he easily found a treasure. He decides to grab the stone to study it later and tosses a coin to the vendor. The young man asks if the stone is for sale, and the vendor confirms with a smile on his face. The man praises him for having a good eye, but inside he calls him a sucker and celebrates the sale. With the stone in hand, our hero walks away while the vendor laughs about his lucky day. Sporting a victorious smile, our hero holds the item he just acquired at the market. He realizes it is a perfect stone disguised by a layer of black stone. The young man thinks that if he sold the gem to an NPC, he could easily get over 100 copper coins. But he knows the stone's dust can be used in alchemy and decides to try out that profession. In the game world, players have the freedom to pick professions like blacksmith or tailor. The entry barrier is low, so most players end up dabbling in one or two. However, there's one lifestyle profession that stands as the grand exception to all the others. Alchemy is expensive and dangerous, as an explosion from a failure can lead to massive losses. Plus, the system warns you that you eliminated yourself, which is the great curse of the alchemist profession. To kick off his plan, our hero checks the current prices for alchemy goods. A medium health potion costs 10 copper coins and is limited to one purchase per day in the game. But he calculates that following the official recipe results in a cost higher than the selling price. On top of that, a 60% failure rate doubles the cost, making the loss even worse. That is why most players cannot get rich off potions and just lose money in the process. But since he lived for 5 years, he knows a few secret recipes to make a huge profit. He then finds a merchant and says the crucial ingredient was Starlight's stone dust. Xiaolian's unexpected gift gave him the chance to make a massive profit from alchemy. Hiding nearby, 2 players watch him, and one tells the other to buy whatever the young man buys. The goon shows the black stone he bought and says the protagonist must know something, but his friend realizes he got scammed and complains the boss made him buy a bunch of junk. Meanwhile, the vendor wonders if he ended up selling the black stone at a loss to himself. Sitting on a bench, our hero says he bought flasks and leaves for 100 health potions. He crushes the stone in his hand, and the system notes he created perfect starlight dust. The spies are startled and conclude that black stone is the key ingredient for a rare item. Flashing an evil grin, they decide to copy exactly what the protagonist is doing. With that, they crush their stones, but the system says they only got black stone dust. The young man starts a secret recipe and pours the grass leaf essence into a crystal flask. Next, he adds the starlight dust, which multiplies the juice's effectiveness exponentially. But the process isn't done yet, and he heads over to the city fountain with the flask in hand. The spies think he is about to perform a high-level ritual in an elegant setting like the fountain. Near the water, our hero prepares to take the next step of his secret recipe. He begins filling the flask with fountain water, leaving the spies deeply confused. With the water, the liquid inside the flask starts glowing with an intense, bubbling green light. The system congratulates him, announcing he successfully crafted a medium health potion. Smiling, he notes the quality is perfect and the effectiveness matches the in-game store exactly. The spies are shocked and curse the Dawnblade, calling him a potion counterfeiter. Ignoring them, the young man continues his mass production of potions right at the fountain. The system congratulates him for crafting 100 potions and for reaching proficient level in alchemy. With a satisfied smile, he thinks that knowledge from the past can easily become wealth in the present. Suddenly, other players surround him, asking if he can sell them some potions. 1 hour later, our hero announces to the crowd that he has already sold out of all his potions. Smiling, he explains that just selling them for 1 coin less than the store made them fly off the shelf. Doing quick math, he realizes he turned 100 copper coins into 1,000 in just 1 hour. The spies see they were wrong about him and realize the Griffin reward has been multiplied. They figure the recipe is a beta secret and that they need to exploit this bug before it gets patched. So they try copying the recipe, mixing black dust with leaves in a flask of fountain water. But the result is a purple liquid, and the system warns they crafted toxic wastewater. In denial, the young man claims it is a health potion and only the color is slightly off. His friend challenges him, asking if he has the guts to drink that weird mixture right there. Suddenly, a system notification pops up for Lin Ji saying player Jabba eliminated himself. A crowd gathers around the body, and everyone wonders what happened to that poor player. The protagonist thinks this is the curse of alchemy, and he can only wish them the best of luck. He then decides it is time to log off to manage all his newly acquired wealth. With the trades finished and the coin pouch in hand, he readies to finally exit the game. The scene shifts to the real world, showing a view of a very simple apartment building. Back in his room, he says he exchanged 50 copper coins for 10,000 yuan each. A notification showing 5 million credited to his account leaves him completely stunned. With a satisfied smile, he thinks the money transfer was actually incredibly fast. Right then, he hears a loud noise of someone banging on and breaking down the front door. 3 men barge into the place, and the leader demands the women pay what they owe them this month. The woman questions the men because the payment was due at the end of the month, not the beginning. But the leader explains he got scammed and lost 1 million playing a pouch, so he pushed the collection up. He warns that if he cannot recoup the cash from them, he is going to get really angry. Frightened, the mother apologizes, says she has no money right now, and begs for a few more days. The debt collector mocks the situation and asks if they really have no way to settle the debt. At that, one of his goons steps forward and roughly grabs the protagonist's sister. The mother screams her daughter's name in despair, while the gang leader smiles maliciously. He threatens her, saying her daughter is at a good age to fetch a nice price if they hand her over. The man then asks where their son is, calling him a loser who just sits at home gaming. He keeps insulting the young man, saying it would be better if he sold his organs for some cash. Just then, the protagonist appears and asks the loan shark if the amount he lost was 1 million. The young man holds up his phone and asks if the money he just transferred is enough. The thugs laugh, thinking it is a lie, but a notification confirms a credit of 1 million yuan. One of the goons is shocked and tells the boss to check his phone, because it has to be fake. With a cold stare, our hero repeats the question, asking if the amount sent is sufficient. The mother and sister are surprised and ask where he got so much money all of a sudden. The debt collectors gather around the phone and start counting the zeros to verify the amount. Shocked, the leader confirms it really is 1 million and cannot believe what he is seeing. He then grabs the young man's shirt and asks how a gaming addict got so much cash. Full of rage, the man demands the protagonist explain exactly where that fortune came from. The young man confirms he plays all day, and naturally, that is how he makes money from games. The loan shark is furious because he just lost 1 million while the other guy gained exactly that. He claims the money isn't paying off the debt, but is instead compensation for his losses. With a cold look, our hero asks if the man is trying to extort him right then and there. Suddenly, the protagonist moves with blazing speed and grabs the thug's hand. With a swift motion, he disarms the loan shark and takes the knife for himself effortlessly. The man is completely shocked and wonders how the young man could move so fast. Lin Ji says it is a shame for the thug because he is good at more things than just playing games. He twists the loan shark's arm, making him cry out in pain and ask if he really is the loser Lin Ji. The protagonist confirms his identity while the goons yell for him to let their boss go. Without hesitating, he steps on the man's other hand and warns nobody to move a single inch. Scared, the loan shark asks to talk things over calmly and begs the guy to ease up on the grip. But our hero shoots him a deadly glare and angrily asks who his brother is. The thug is terrified and thinks the young man's aura is as frightening as a fiend from the underworld. With the man pinned down, the protagonist asks if he still wants to try extorting him again. The loan shark says it was a misunderstanding, and there's no reason to fight since the debt is paid. He asks his goons if everything is settled, and they agree, terrified of the young man. Flashing a dark look, our hero orders all of them to leave his house immediately. Without a second thought, the thugs sprint away in a hurry to escape the protagonist's fury. He watches the men leave while his mother and sister stare at everything in pure confusion. His sister yells at the debt collectors, threatening them by saying her brother will take them down. Terrified, the men apologize and promise they will never dare return to bother them again. Seeing the men flee, the sister turns around and asks Lin Ji if he owes them an explanation. He looks at her with a confused expression and asks what kind of explanation she wants. With a serious look, she demands to know how a hidden billionaire suddenly appeared in their home. The young man gets nervous and wonders how he will explain all this without worrying his family. She crosses her arms and demands an answer about how a billionaire emerged out of nowhere. But he just smiles and thinks it is great to be reborn because his sister is still alive and healthy. He remembers that in his past life, the family fell into debt following his father's passing and her illness. Back then, he had no choice but to take on the family's entire burden all by himself just to survive. Two men brush him off, telling him to go home and wait for a call that will never come. The job market was brutal, and as a commoner, it was nearly impossible to secure employment. Until one day, he saw a mascot advertising and calling people to play the game of pouch. They had promised an unknown world filled with riches for anyone brave enough to venture in. The young man reveals his initial reason for becoming a gamer was purely to earn money. Ashamed, he admits all he really wanted was to get some cash to support his family. A guild leader approaches him, saying he needs someone who is not afraid to face danger for a job. The payout was just 2 copper coins for every mission he managed to successfully complete. Even so, he takes the job and states that every single battle was an encounter with the bitter end. But as long as he survived to see the end of it, he could keep earning his paycheck. The guild leader praises Lin Ji, remarking that he is truly very hard to put down in battle. He continues complimenting him, saying the young man always manages to survive until the final bell. With a bruised face, our hero wipes the damage away and remains silent, listening to the man. As a reward for his hard work, the leader hands him 1 extra copper coin as a bonus. The man says goodbye and leaves, hoping they can work together again in the near future. Alone in the cave, he thinks that thanks to his years of experience, he learned how to deal with the absolute worst. As a result, his combat skills became increasingly polished and significantly more efficient. Later on, even if the entire group wiped, he could stay alive and take on the boss solo. With his skills maturing, a brand new dream began taking shape in his mind for the future. He decided he wanted to become the absolute strongest player, using strictly his own abilities. On that path, he could also earn money and protect the people who meant the most to him. Over time, he met a like-minded brother named Bailey who fought faithfully by his side. They made a pact to become the strongest in their respective classes, relying on their technique. After that, they would duel to see who was the more powerful between the two at the very end. Time passed, his fame skyrocketed, and his family's financial crisis was slowly relieved, until one day the battle manager pulled him aside and told him he had to throw the next match. Furious, our hero slams the table and asks why he isn't allowed to win that fight. He yells that he has the skills to fight for the throne of the strongest and stand at Apache's peak. Furthermore, if he won the final match, he'd get 100 million to cure his sister's illness. With eyes full of rage, he questions why he should be the only one expected to lose. The manager says the final is rigged, and as a commoner, he cannot beat a rising star. He reveals the opponent as his friend Bailey, and losing to him means helping fulfill his destiny. But the young man refuses to yield, claiming Bailey wouldn't break their promise since he knows his situation. He states he needs to be the strongest and will bet everything on defeating his friend there. The man yells that even if he doesn't throw the fight, the investors will make sure he loses anyway. He suggests the young man back down with honor instead of waiting for an inevitable downfall. Linji thinks Bailey has a safety net to fall back on, but for a commoner like him, the fall is forever. He reflects that he doesn't have a second chance, and right then, he gets a call from his worried mother. She says the hospital equipment failed and his sister's condition suddenly took a sharp turn for the worse. Desperate, she begs him to drop the fight and mentions a man in black came looking for her. Completely devastated by the news, our hero begins to cry for his beloved sister. Back in the present, the girl notices her brother's state and asks if he is crying over something. He plays it off with a smile, pinches her cheek, and says he is just happy and feels like laughing. The young woman finds it strange and asks if he really earned 1 million just by playing a game. Smiling, he confirms and says he opened a mystery box and sold an item for an absolute fortune. Excited, she asks for the helmet to play, but he warns that minors are not allowed in the game. The protagonist reflects that everyone must have their own reasons for becoming gamers. Some chase glory and dreams, while others just want a brief escape from harsh reality. But he declares his reason for playing is very simple. It is just to become the absolute strongest. He thinks he can always survive the most brutal situations because his life was built for that. He says that behind every instance of survival, there is a powerful motive driving him to keep living. His goal is to be the best of all, so he can protect the people who are most important. But in this life, to be the strongest, he knows he needs to buy a few things ahead of time, so he walks in the official Epoch peripheral store and spots a rig priced at 1 million yuan. He remembers that in his past life, he could barely afford an item 2 tiers below that one. Meanwhile, his old friend Bailey had been using top-tier gear from the very beginning of his journey. The store owner recognizes him and mockingly asks if his entry-level model is already broken. Our hero stares him down and firmly states he wants to upgrade to the Supreme Thunder. Shocked, the man asks if he heard him right, since that is equipment meant for professional gamers. Another person walks in and remarks it's nice to have dreams, but he shouldn't be so delusional. The newcomer then demands a Supreme Thunder, paying in full up front, while the protagonist watches. The owner addresses him as young Master Rex, saying it is the only unit in town fit for an elite player. Recognizing the voice, Linji realizes it is an old acquaintance and glares at him seriously. We then see Rex complaining to his goons about getting scammed by Hao and our hero. He keeps ranting, saying if his gear weren't so bad, he would hunt him until he quit the game. At that moment, he turns and sees the young man standing right there, leaving him completely shocked. Full of rage, the man yells Linji's name and asks why he keeps showing up absolutely everywhere. Smiling, our hero notes that enemies always cross paths and asks if he wants another beating. Rex mocks him, saying Shilian couldn't handle him in-game, so he really is a tough guy. But he warns that now they are in the real world, where he holds far more power than anyone around. One of the goons reminds Rex he said the exact same mocking lines back in Mail City. Rex yells that the guy used hacks and that now, in the real world, they are going to teach him a harsh lesson. Desperate, the store owner steps in and begs them not to fight there, because running a business is hard enough. He turns to Linji and suggests he kneel and apologize to young Master Rex right away. Our hero says a game is just a game, and he was planning to leave it all behind and just walk away. But Rex gets furious, pulls a knife, and declares that today he will reclaim all the dignity he lost. His goons complain it took them forever to level up, and they are absolutely not going to forgive the guy. With that, Rex lunges forward with knife in hand, yelling for the protagonist to brace for the worst. At that exact moment, our hero's eye glows intensely, and he focuses sharply on the upcoming clash. Suddenly, time seems to slow down for him, and everything around him moves in complete slow motion. He explains that 5 years of hellish combat inside the game trained his brain in incredible ways. Because his reflexes are so fast, he experiences an effect similar to time drastically slowing down. And that same effect applies to reality, allowing him to easily dodge Rex's attack without a sweat. Rex is completely shocked and asks if the protagonist can actually use hacks in real life too. Given the enemy's zero time to breathe, our hero preps a punch packed with all his strength. With a swift, precise motion, he lands a solid hit right on Rex's face before he can even react. The impact is so intense the guy drops to the floor, face battered and taking serious damage. With Rex down, he states it is impossible to hack the real world and that it comes down to pure skill. He then turns to the other two and says they can just attack him together to save some time. Terrified, the goons say they are leaving and will wait for the boss at their usual spot. With the troublemakers grounded, he asks for the Supreme Thunder and hands over the card to pay in full. The owner is stunned by the amount and asks if he managed to earn all that doing manual labor. With his brand new gear in hand, the protagonist exits the store as the owner waves goodbye. But outside the shop, a green-haired man watches him intently as he walks past the area. Wearing a serious expression, the mysterious man stares at him from a distance with an unwavering look. Our hero recognizes him from the game and asks why he didn't join the others in attacking him. The green-haired guy gets nervous at the question and starts stammering, not knowing what to say. He takes a deep breath, trying to gather all his courage so he can actually say what he wants. With fierce determination, the man yells at Linji that he genuinely wants to become much stronger. This unexpected declaration catches the protagonist off guard, and he looks at him with mild curiosity. He introduces himself as Hawk and drops to his knees, begging Lord Dawnblade to take him in. With eyes full of passion, he pleads once more for the young man to accept him as his disciple. But our hero scoffs at the idea and warns he has absolutely no intention of taking on a student. Unwilling to give up, Hawk grabs him and asks to finish explaining what he realized watching him fight. With strong conviction, he reveals the most important thing he grasped is that Linji is truly strong. He confesses he picked the Fire of Retribution talent simply because he was afraid to fight on the front lines. Because of that, he relied on flashy but useless effects in the game just to mask his own cowardice. He remembers all his past failures in the game and considers himself a complete and total failure. That is why he wants to get genuinely stronger and become a powerful player like our protagonist. The young man rejects him again but thinks the foolish Hawk still doesn't know about what is coming. He then tells the guy he might consider taking him as a disciple in the future, which gives him hope. With sparkling eyes, Hawk asks if that means Lord Dawnblade hasn't completely rejected him. Our hero explains that the very moment he acknowledged his own weakness, he already started getting stronger. With the new game update dropping, he warns he will keep an eye on Hawk to see if he is worthy of being his student. Overjoyed, Hawk promises to use this time to prove he is truly worthy of becoming his disciple. The protagonist reflects that the gears of destiny have taken a different turn compared to his past life. Back in his room, he puts on his new helmet and gets ready to dive back into the world of Apoc. With a confident smile, the lights on the gear power up, and he successfully connects to the game once more. He spawns in a green field right in front of the massive house the mayor gifted to him. The young man notes the update changed his default lodge and point directly to his own in-game house. Key in hand, he unlocks the door and steps into his new property for the very first time. A system message welcomes him back and informs him that the renovation feature has been fully unlocked. This means he can remodel the house and the land within a 500-meter radius as his own territory. The system also mentions that higher reputation grants more land, something he didn't know before. Looking around inside, he notices the house is completely empty and totally uninhabitable at the moment. A panel pops up showing furniture and decor options to buy, with costs listed in copper coins. He figures out the mayor handed him an empty house just so he'd spend his money renovating it. Despite getting tricked, he looks around with a slight smirk, thinking about a different approach entirely. Sitting on his new sofa, he admits the view is nice and figures he can simply earn the money back later. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise and turns toward the door, curious about what it could be. Satisfied with the new furniture in place, he hears someone suddenly knocking at the door. Suspicious, our hero walks up to the door and asks exactly who is standing on the other side. A woman with purple hair and red eyes greets him, casually addressing him as Dawnblade. He recognizes her instantly and thinks her showing up there can only be a bad omen. She steps closer and asks why he is treating her so coldly since they are old friends. The young man knows Xia Lian controls the city's dark side, and getting involved with her is a huge mistake. In the game, players who attack others cannot walk freely through the city streets. Underworld NPCs like her take these rogue players in and offer them services within the game. But of course, all that comes with an extra fee, which is why the people looking for her are never good news. With a smile, she offers him a job to make some money, but he rejects the offer on the spot. The woman pushes the door open and claims he is the only person in the entire city capable of handling this mission. Sitting on his new sofa, she explains that a magical beast lair has spawned west of the city. Uninterested, he simply closes the door and asks if that is really all she came to say. She continues, saying the creature is very strong and has already devoured several of her subordinates there. The protagonist questions her, noting her henchmen only operate near the city and never that far out. The young woman dodges the question and offers a bounty of 100 copper coins for the creature's head. Smiling, he grabs the apple from her hand and tosses back a counteroffer of 10 silver coins. Furious, she yells that his price is 100 times higher than her initial offer for the mission. Calmly, he points out that since she came looking for him, he is the one who sets the price for the job. She argues that with that kind of cash, she could easily hire every player in the city to do the work. The protagonist replies that if she sought him out, she must have her reasons, and he can reveal the truth. The woman challenges him with a smirk, daring him to tell her everything he knows about her. He explains that her treasure vault is actually a secret dungeon that has been occupied by a monster. The young man realizes she wanted her money back but couldn't find anyone suited for the mission. He further speculates that the treasure is worth over 100 gold coins and countless precious items. Shocked, she asks how a rookie player like him could possibly know all those hidden details. With a confident stare, he reveals he is a returner and knows every single NPC secret there is. In his past life, her vault became a massive treasure hunt mission for the entire server. Back then, she became corrupted, was taken down, and faded in just another story in the game of Epoch. But right now, what he wants to discuss is the stolen money, and he threatens to expose everything to the mayor. He asks her if she honestly thinks she can survive like this until the game's next version drops. Furious, the young woman says the mayor is just an old man who wouldn't dare meddle in her affairs. Even angry, she admits she loves money and simply cannot part with such a massive amount. Seeing her absolute greed, our hero offers to do the job completely free of charge for her. Eyes gleaming, the woman gets excited and asks if he really won't charge her anything at all. He then reveals his true price. He demands she hand over her position as the manager of Shadow Street. The young man recalls she seemed different from his memory, where her story was strictly secondary, but later on, Mel City was invaded, and the terrifying Chanter Griffin became its new ruler. Following the mayor's defeat, she submitted to the villain and became his accomplice in every crime. She turned into a major villain, a dungeon boss, and in the end was defeated by everyone. But in this life, he accidentally discovered a hidden, very interesting side to this specific NPC. He remembers she admitted she couldn't take him down anytime soon without drawing a blade, and that she used to be someone who found genuine joy and excitement purely in true combat. Because of that, he believes the scales of destiny might tip due to this one small change. The woman yells that his demand is impossible and outright refuses to accept the young man's proposal. His eye begins to glow and he activates his special skill known as the Eye of True Vision. Furious, she accuses him of using the very item she gave him to spy on her right there. He explains that the items inside the vault are important enough for her to give up everything else. Sword in hand, she says she respects him as a true tough guy and preps herself for a fight. But he reminds her she is standing on his territory and that she is the one who needs to show respect. She finally confesses that the treasure is her ticket out of the underworld and accepts his deal. Already out in the forest, he runs and thinks he cannot believe he took a mission with no cash payout from her. Wearing an expression of regret, he keeps thinking he must have completely lost his mind in that moment. A mission notification pops up while the young woman tells him she marked the location on his map. Before leaving, he holds out his hand and tells her to hand over exactly what she promised him right now. Confused and angry, she yells, asking what money he wants since he specifically said it was free. The young man corrects her, explaining he doesn't want money, but rather that he needs a new weapon. He reminds her she broke his sword and promised to compensate him with a new weapon as a gift. The woman states she isn't great with swords and that her collection only consists of large blades. With that, she summons a massive blade and says the weapon is called the Night Wanderer. Linji inspects the new weapon and says that to him, this is exactly what a sword is supposed to be. He wields the blade and notes it is significantly heavier than he originally imagined before holding it. A screen displays the weapon's description and its effect, which easily destroys lower quality swords. With a single swing, he slices through all the vines holding him, demonstrating the item's raw power. He thanks her for placing the marker on his map, since it would have taken a whole day to find the entrance. At that moment, the young man goes on high alert, saying the mysterious monster must be approaching. Suddenly, a massive wild boar appears, charging straight toward him at high speed in the area. The protagonist stares at it, confused, wondering if that beast is merely a level 1 boar. He preps for the fight, thinking that this type of creature is usually just a crafting ingredient in the game. But something much larger blows past him at blazing speed, leaving the hero deeply startled. The creature slams right into the boar, obliterating it in a single strike, completely surprising the hero. Wide-eyed, he absolutely cannot believe what just unfolded right in front of him. Startled, he tries to assess the situation and wonders why a monster like that is even there. A black dragon appears and a notification warns that it is level 8, while the young man is only level 2. The dragon glares at him and says it is ridiculous for a foolish human to even consider challenging him. He gets a call from Shelly and asking if he found the creature yet, and he yells back at her. The young woman explains a boss of that level requires a group, but bringing weak players would just get in the way. She adds she already fought him and notes his skill level is vastly superior to other players. The young man thinks starting area monster shouldn't pass level 4, so something is very wrong. She says that since he defeated Griffin all by himself, he can definitely handle the dragon too. He stares down the creature, thinking the 6-level gap between the two of them is absolutely massive right now. He wonders if his personal skills can genuinely make up for such a colossal difference in power. The dragon offers two choices. The first is to bury him right there, leaving not even a trace of ashes behind. The second option is to kneel, praise the name Zodiac, and become one of his loyal servants. Our hero refuses, saying he only came to remind him that he is trespassing in someone else's home. Furious, Zodiac roars that the treasure in that vault has always belonged to him and no one else. The young man thinks the game leans heavily into tropes of arrogant, greedy dragons, much like Xia Lian. At that, the creature preps to punish him, and the system warns that he has become the target of the attack. He remembers that in his past life, he needed a group of 8 just to beat a dragon like this. The protagonist calculates that the stat difference between levels is nearly double in the game of a poke. Even with all his experience, his current body's performance is incredibly low for the upcoming fight. Angrily, he realizes he was tricked once again by the young woman and that the mission is a total trap. Using the blade's weight, he manages to anchor himself to the ground so the attack doesn't blow him away. He knows a black dragon has 4 specific attack patterns, and any single one of them can take him down. The creature takes flight and roars that the human is foolishly trying to challenge its authority there. But the young man knows every attack has a telltale animation, so he can predict the enemy's moves. When the dragon rears its head back, he knows a bite is coming and manages to dodge it perfectly. The claw swipe, however, leaves a tiny half-second window for him to safely strike back. And at that exact moment, right after the claw attack, he prepares for his one big chance. With a swift motion, our hero charges in at full force, seizing the moment to counterattack. He strikes with all his might, but a 0 damage notification suddenly pops up right in front of him. Enraged, the creature calls him an ant and readies a brand new attack against the young man. The dragon lunges to bite him, and our hero realizes it is way too late to dodge the hit. Desperate, he remembers Channer Griffin's golden bell, which might just be his only salvation. A golden aura shields him from the bite, saving him from a tragic and otherwise inevitable end right there. The creature violently spits him out, completely confused about what just happened. Wearing a look of pure disgust, the dragon wonders what exactly it just bit into and spat out. It thinks it needs to find a way to break through the enemy's defense if it wants to win. Zodiac mocks him, saying he cannot use that trick again and that the young man is nothing but garbage. The dragon readies a fire breath, and our hero realizes this is an attack he absolutely cannot dodge. He explains that backing away only increases the attack's range, making the situation far more dangerous. While calculating the safe distance, he watches the creature gear up for the final blow. He concludes that the only truly safe distance is 0 distance, and he charges in with everything he has. The creature is shocked by the player's speed, which is not normal for someone at level 2. He attacks once more with all his strength, but the outcome is exactly the same. The damage remains 0. Angrily, he complains that the special blade cannot inflict a single scratch of damage on the giant monster. The dragon laughs, saying the weapon cannot even scratch its scales and that he severely overestimated the young man. Xia Lian calls him, casually mentioning she forgot to say that the Night Wanderer is shy around strangers. Furious, the protagonist yells, asking why she is only sharing something so critically important right now. She explains that the weapon only unleashes its full power for someone it officially recognizes as its master. He asks the young woman exactly what conditions need to be met for the sword to finally acknowledge him. She explains he must prove he has already faced several life or death trials in the past. The young man thinks he has seen plenty of strange conditions in games, but dealing with the end is something else entirely. Sporting a confident smile, he says that is exactly what he excels at and he will surely succeed. The creature prepares another fire breath, and the protagonist faces the challenge head-on. Showing immense agility, he sprints alongside the incoming blast of fire to escape the imminent danger. Our hero barely manages to dodge the dragon's deadly breath, relying entirely on his fast reflexes. His target is a precise 3-inch spot on the dragon's neck, which serves as its primary weak point. That is the exact location of the creature's inverted scale, and the only place where he can deal any damage. With a perfectly timed leap, he rushes in and strikes the monster's weak point cleanly with his blade. The hit connects, forcing the dragon back from the impact, but it still doesn't seem to have taken much damage. Zodiac takes to the sky again, mocking the knave human for thinking he could actually hurt him like that. The protagonist braces for the next phase of the battle while closely watching the airborne enemy. He remembers a very important detail, realizing he completely forgot the monster has the ability to fly. With that, he activates his grip enhancement, and his sword glows brightly with a strong red aura. The young woman warns him the next attack is a dive breath and his frail body absolutely cannot withstand it. He figures that the blade only acknowledges someone who has no fear of facing their own end. Then, Zodiac dives down with a ball of energy in its mouth, ready to finish the fight once and for all. The young man declares that while wielding the blade, he should be worshipped by it as if he were a god. At that moment, a massive burst of red energy erupts from him, and the sword finally recognizes him. He yells furiously that he is the god of war who has returned from the underworld specifically for this battle. A notification confirms a weapon recognized him, unlocking the armor destruction ability. With the blade now glowing a fierce red, he charges straight at the monster flying through the sky. Watching through the screen, Xia Lian is in shock, wondering how he unlocked the power so incredibly fast. The dragon finally senses genuine danger from the human for the first time and roars in pain from the attack. Wounded, Zodiac calls him a despicable human and questions his right to have inflicted damage upon him. The creature promises to make him deeply regret his insolence and meet his end in pure agony. The young man thinks the new ability is absolutely perfect for taking down the enemy in a single strike. Zodiac assumes the player finally made a stupid mistake and that his end has officially arrived. The monster says that by jumping, he lost his chance to dodge, as evading in mid-air is completely impossible. With a focused stare, the protagonist knows even the slightest mistake in this jump means absolute defeat. He understands his life and his end now rely entirely on just a few precious, fleeting milliseconds. In the deciding moment, the two clash in mid-air for a final attack using everything they have left. The young man places his full trust in his hands, his breath, and every single part of his body to secure the win. While Zodiac roars for him to be eliminated, the hero thinks he can only rely completely on himself now. Amidst the flames, he states that in this massive gamble, there is absolutely no other option but to win. With that declaration, a massive explosion of light bursts forth, and he reaffirms that there are simply no other choices.